Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So a quick preview and prediction for Anthony Yarde versus Lyndon. This fight goes down on December the 5th and it is for the Commonwealth Light Heavyweight title currently held by Lyndon. All in all, I think this is a pretty solid fight. Right now, I think this is the ideal fight for both guys. Of course, Anthony Yarde is on the comeback trail. He lost in his first world title fight against Kovalev, August 2019, and yeah, he's on the comeback trail. One of the biggest criticisms in regards to Anthony Yarde, especially before the Kovalev fight, was the fact that he basically jumped to world level without actually fighting any of his domestic rivals beforehand, and a lot of people were very critical of the approach taken with Anthony Yarde to get him a world title fight. But here he is, post Kovalev, he drops back down and he is fighting at domestic level. I think this is the type of fight he needs right now against a young, hungry, unbeaten fighter who basically wants what Anthony Yarde has. Anthony Yarde actually has some sort of profile in the UK. Lyndon really doesn't. Lyndon wants what Anthony Yarde has going into this fight. So both guys have something to play for here. In fact, the winner of this fight, it would be their best win on their resumes, bar none, in my opinion. But yeah, let's briefly talk about the tail of the tape in regards to these two fighters. Anthony Yarde, of course, has a record of 20 wins, 1 defeat. 19 of those 20 wins coming by way of knockout. Lyndon has a perfect record of 17-0, 12 of his 17 wins coming by way of knockout. Anthony Yarde is listed as 6 foot on the dot, and Lyndon is listed as 6'2". I can't actually find any of their reaches anywhere, but from the naked eye, it certainly looks to me that Lyndon has the longer arms going into this fight. So he is definitely taller, and he looks longer as well. And I think that could play a factor on fight night, given the style in which Lyndon fights. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Both guys are orthodox fighters. Anthony Yarde is 29 years old, Lyndon also 29 years old. So going by the tail of the tape, these two guys are actually relatively well matched, to be honest with you. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this fight, I really am. But let's briefly get into the style clash. I guess we might as well start with the underdog, Lyndon what he needs to do in this fight. Traditionally, Lyndon as he's kind of stepped up a little bit, he's revealed himself to be an outboxer. You know, he likes to box behind the jab, he likes to keep you at arm's length, and yeah, use lateral movement to outbox you. Lyndon essentially is just an outboxer with a little bit of power as well. He can certainly crack a little bit, Lyndon And yeah, in this fight, obviously, I think that style could actually pose some success for him. Anthony Yarde, when you look at him, when you look at his style, when you look at his just skill set in general, Anthony Yarde is well, first and foremost, he is very flat-footed, and in my opinion, he's not all that great at cutting the ring off, in my opinion. So Lyndon really needs to try and exploit that. He's got the natural style to do so, you know, boxer move, use lateral movement, keep the feet moving, and that's how I think he should approach this fight. You know, stay consistent with the jab, keep long straight punches, and keep Anthony Yarde turning, keep Anthony Yarde chasing the fight. However, one thing that Lyndon needs to avoid in this fight, which he has done in the past in numerous fights, is when he actually takes breaks in the ring. Sometimes you'll sit there and you'll see Lyndon box effectively behind his jab, he'll keep moving, he'll keep that jab hopping, but sometimes he'll then take a break, sit on the ropes, or sit in the corner. I don't believe he can afford to do that against Anthony Yarde. Anthony Yarde is a fairly powerful puncher. He's very explosive, and when he's got you hurt, he's very good at putting his shots together to get you out of there. He's got great variety of punches. So Lyndon being a sitting duck is a no-no in my opinion. He needs to stay off the ropes, stay out of the corner as much as possible. But the red flag is he's done that in numerous fights in his career. He'll actually try and fight off the ropes. I don't think that's a good idea against a quick guy like Anthony Yarde who can time you and can counter you. So yeah, in my opinion, Lyndon needs to keep off the ropes, he needs to keep out of the corner, and he needs to keep the range against Anthony Yarde. He needs to make Anthony Yarde always chase the fight, and Anthony Yarde needs to be the guy forcing the initiative. If he wants to take breaks, I certainly believe there's better ways going about it than sitting on the ropes. Maybe, you know, if you want a 10-second breather, have a clinch. force a clinch with Anthony Yarde. I know Yarde is very strong, he's physically very strong, but Arthur is the taller, longer man. When you have that sort of build, you can actually lock up your opponents quite effectively. So instead of sitting on the ropes, sitting in the corner, if you do need a break, don't be afraid to clinch. Another thing with Lyndon Arthur, I've seen this guy hurt a couple of times. Well, actually, only a couple of times in one fight, and that was against the Ghanaian light heavyweight Emmanuel Anim. And in that fight, it was a very hard fight. I felt Lyndon Arthur just about won it, but Anim really gave him a lot of problems, and he hurt him on a couple of occasions. One of the mistakes that Lyndon Arthur was making was when he was hurt, he was actually trading with Emmanuel Anim, again, against Anthony Yarde, a guy with very quick hands, a guy who's very powerful. He can't afford to be doing that. I think there's going to be moments in this fight where Lyndon Arthur is hurt, and in those situations, fighting fire with fire is not a good idea. When Anthony Yarde really goes up the gears and turns it up, he is quite a good finisher. So again, it's about minimising the chances Yarde has to land his explosive bursts. And ultimately, Lyndon needs to box his fight like he usually does, but he needs to be a lot more flawless in this one than he's been in the past. What he did against, Dex Spellman and Emmanuel Anim, that's not going to be enough in this fight, in my opinion. He made too many mistakes in those fights for Anthony Yarde to capitalise. And one more thing from Lyndon Arthur. Obviously, I'm sitting here saying that he needs to be boxing and moving, utilising the jab, etc., etc. But at the same time, still try and make Anthony Yarde respect you. Lyndon Arthur can punch a bit. He's got 12 knockouts in 17 fights. He can crack a bit. He's got a bit of power on that straight right hand, Sometimes you're going to have to let go of your shots and, try and hurt Anthony Yarde to put him in his place. He does need to implement offense and a little bit of initiative to his box and move game plan. And when Lyndon Arthur is boxing, he can't afford to negate that jab to the body, that jab to the chest. We saw the Sergey Kovalev fight. That fight was won by Kovalev's jab. He obviously knocked out Yarde with a jab, but basically Anthony Yarde was knocked out by 200 jabs. Kovalev's jab to the body and the chest wore Anthony Yarde down, and Yarde had nothing left in the championship rounds. And Lyndon Arthur, again, needs to be looking at that fight and trying to replicate some of the things that Kovalev was doing. I know Kovalev is a much higher level fighter, but, there are things there to learn from. There are things there to replicate, in my opinion. And, stick that jab to the body, stick it to the chest, and then maybe late in the fight, when Yarde is tiring, when Yarde is flagging, that's when you actually start putting it on Yarde, and then try to force the pace a little bit more and get more adventurous with your offense. To me, Lyndon Arthur, he does need to box the best fight of his career. I think he's got the raw attributes to really trouble Anthony Yarde, but he really needs to put it all together in this one. What he's shown so far won't be enough, and he needs to adjust on the fly. He needs to be mindful of where Anthony Yarde is at in the fight. Like I said, if he senses that Yarde is flagging, really start putting it on him, because when Yarde's gas tank goes, it looks like it goes in a big way, right? So, that's how I feel Lyndon needs to approach this fight. Box and move, but at the same time, you will need to hold your feet occasionally and land something big on Yarde, utilise the jab to the body, and then maybe late on in the fight, if Yarde is flagging, then get a bit more adventurous with the offense. As for Anthony Yarde, in this fight, I think it's clear that Lyndon Arthur is going to be moving, and one thing Yarde hasn't been necessarily great at is cutting off a ring. In this fight, I want to see Yarde quicken up those feet just a little bit. Stop following your man in straight lines. Take a step to the left, take a step to the right. Really make this a claustrophobic experience for Lyndon Arthur. And obviously when Arthur is in those corners, when he's on the ropes, which he's done in basically every fight I've seen him in, that's when Yarde needs to go to work. He needs to go to work to body, head, and he needs to make the most of those moments when Lyndon Arthur is taking a break. Also, Anthony Yarde is a pretty good counterpuncher, in my opinion. He's a pretty solid counterpuncher, actually, very explosive with it. And again, even when Lyndon Arthur is boxing and moving, he does make mistakes, He's got a pretty good right hand, Lyndon Arthur, but there are occasions when he'll just fall in, for example, with it. In those moments, you need to be looking out for punches like the uppercut. Yarde has a very good uppercut. And Lyndon Arthur's going to present opportunities for Yarde to land his counter punches as well. So, Yarde needs to look for those opportunities, take them, and when he needs to force the fight, aka when Arthur is in the corner or on the ropes, he really needs to do so. He needs to really put it on Arthur and work him over, basically, because I'm not convinced that Lyndon Arthur is the most durable guy out there. I saw something in that Emmanuel Anim fight which told me I don't think this guy can take too many flush punches from Anthony Yarde. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my gut feeling going into this fight. So yeah, Yarde, he definitely needs to make those moments count in this fight. Defensively, Yarde, I would like to see him tidy up, but I really don't expect to see it happen, to be honest. Anthony Yarde seems very stubborn in regards to the fact that he wants to fight in that shoulder roll, and I don't think he's necessarily great at it, to be honest. He gets hit with a lot of jabs in that shoulder roll, a lot of left hooks, so I would like to see Yarde actually revert to a more traditional stance, maybe like a high guard with a little bit of head movement, something like that. I think the shoulder roll could actually lead to Anthony Yarde getting into a little bit of trouble, whether it's this fight or another fight in the future. I mean, we saw that against Sergey Kovalev, for example. Yarde, when he's in defense mode, in my opinion, isn't really that effective in the shoulder roll. He was getting caught by jabs from Kovalev time and time again, left hooks, right hands over the top. He just really couldn't defend against Kovalev's offense in that shoulder roll stance. Yarde can throw punches out of a shoulder roll. It's just his defense, in my opinion, in that stance that kind of lets him down. So yeah, to me, he's just not that fluid in that shoulder roll like a James Toney or like a Floyd Mayweather. So again, if we're looking at Lyndon Arthur, I'd be looking at that shoulder roll and I'd be trying to exploit it, to be honest, because I think it's obvious that Yarde's going to fight in that stance. And yeah, if I was Lyndon Arthur, I'd be looking at that and I'd be practicing certain punches, particularly the left hook. The left hook can be very effective against the shoulder roll, especially against a shoulder roll which is being used by, somebody who's not necessarily great at it, I believe Anthony Yarde falls into that category. Also, his Lyndon Arthur's right hand as well, while Yarde is in that shoulder roll defense. Lyndon Arthur is the taller guy. When you're like rolling the shoulder and you're fighting a guy who's taller than you, they can actually throw their straight right over your shoulder roll, basically. So again, if I was Lyndon Arthur, I'd be really looking at developing my right hand and adjusting it to fight a shoulder roll type fighter. But yeah, those are the brief keys to victory for both fighters. Now going into this fight, who do I actually pick to win? Quite frankly, I am picking Anthony Yarde to win this fight. I actually wouldn't be surprised if it's a fight in which Lyndon Arthur starts well, maybe he wins the early rounds, but I think it's going to be those moments when Lyndon Arthur is against the ropes, when he's more stationary. I think those moments are going to let him down, and eventually he's going to get caught by a big shot, and Yarde is going to finish him, essentially. So I'm going with an Anthony Yarde stoppage win. I'm not really sure when it's going to be. Maybe the second half of a fight, something like that. But I've got Anthony Yarde by stoppage. Good fight though. Good stylistic clash. I think it's the ideal fight for both fighters, and especially for Anthony Yarde. I think he needs this type of fight right now post Kovalev. A fight against an unbeaten domestic rival with ambition. If Yarde wins this fight, I think then he can actually move on to European level. Try to win the European title, maybe after that fight a guy who's at fringe world level, and after that then fight once again at world level. That's what I'd be doing if I was Anthony Yarde. That's how I would be moving him right now. But yeah, good fight, but my prediction is Anthony Yarde by stoppage. Anyway, share your thoughts below. I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts on this fight. Who are you picking and how? Peace.